The following is presented to you in around sound. It was recorded with whatever was lying around.
Lady don't take no shit, insist on respect the sister, walk around acting womanish. She won't speak unless it's something worth saying, don't play. The girl take herself so serious, people stare curious, she got a natural way, her hips sway furious, yeah, the luxurious, carries herself like the cutest, most prettiest thing you see this side of the bay.
Hey, this is Lady Don't Take No, your weekly roundup of all of the real and none of the fake. I'm your host, Alicia Garza. This show is pro-Black, pro-queer, proudly feminist, and pro-do what you love. Every week, you're going to get the best of what goes on in my head, what we loving on, and what we hating on, what we might be, and what we ain't going to do. Politics, pop culture, the Republican primaries, and what it might mean for 2024, we cover it all. We know that no matter where you are, it's a challenging time, a changing time, a time of transformation. It's all the things all the time nowadays, but we are going to help you understand the dynamics of this time. So tune in, tell a friend, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We do it for the culture, so the pod is free 99 because we know that with a country in chaos, the least we could do is keep you from putting your money anywhere else than where it's needed.
She got razor sharp wit and she just won't quit. Flaunting it, body built like a house made out of brick. She got the smile, the style, and finesse, compounded with the blessed, profound intellect.
Our guest this week is returning to the pod after a year and a half, and my goodness, we have quite a few things to catch up on. She has been an activist, writer, strategist focused on women's rights and racial justice since the 1960s, and we are so glad she has. She co-founded the Women of Color Resource Center, and she served as National Research Director and Senior Advisor at the National Domestic Workers Alliance for nearly a decade. She co-edited the 2022 book, Power Concedes Nothing, How Grassroots Organizing Wins Elections, and is currently working on Fascism 101, an online curriculum that examines the rise of authoritarian and fascist forces in the United States today. Her podcast is the most listened to in our stream, and so we are so excited to have her back. Please welcome my mentor, my homie, my friend, Linda Burnham. Hey, Linda, what's going on?
Hey, Alicia. It is so good to be here with you. I'm loving it.
I love having you here, and I love talking to you. And listen, can we just start off by saying that the world is really fucking wild right now? That's an understatement. And when the powers that be like acting up, you are always the person that I call to help me understand, like, what the fuck is going on here? So thank you for that. And this is why we call you OG Linda, right? Because you are truly the original gangster. So Linda, to say that politics is polarized in this country is like, it's not sufficient. On the one hand, we have a party that's been taken over by conspiracy theorists, election deniers who still believe that the Orange Menace is the rightful and real president of the United States. And unabashed racists, sexists, homophobes, you name it, we got it. That's on one side. Now, on the other side, we got a party that still seems to be stuck like in the 1970s, right? A moderately liberal agenda, but kind of slow to embrace what's really needed to activate their base and the base they could have that would most likely align with its values. And who, all things considered, if their issues were addressed, maybe, possibly, probably we could move the country forward. It's a mess, to say the least. So there's a lot of talk out there, Linda, about bipartisanship and reaching across the aisle. But I always say, okay, if we're going to talk about that, for that to happen, wouldn't somebody have to change their mind? So usually I ask my guests to tell me a story about a time that you changed your mind and what happened. However, this time I'm going to ask you, what is something that you wish that we would change our minds about and why? Think about something that we're like really convinced is right or the only way, but it's time to change our perspective. What do you think?
Well, Alicia, I think the main thing that we need to change our perspective on has to do with kind of what time it is right this minute.
Mm.
And I think we really need to grapple with the fact of the matter. I wouldn't say our politics are polarized so much as I would say that the Republican Party has lost its mind and has been taken over by fascists, essentially. They don't yet have state power, but that is what they are driving towards. So I think the main thing I want us to change our minds about is anybody who thinks that overturning capital is on the agenda at the moment, anybody who thinks socialism is on the agenda at the moment, anybody who thinks anything except figuring out how to resist the onslaught that is coming our way from people who are out to destroy the threadbare democracy that we have. Anybody who thinks it's any other time than that, I want them to change their mind and face up to what is coming at us and coming at us hard.
I'm hoping that we can really talk today about helping people understand what fascism is. I think sometimes we throw around these words, right? And people don't know what they mean, or we use them wrong. And I, as you know, I'm a believer that words mean things. And so we need to use the words in the way that they're meant so that we're all on the same page. There was a time, right, when we would just talk about fascists as like mean people or people we didn't agree with, or like, we talk about fascists as the enemy, right? But it's like, you don't really know, well, what is fascism? And I know you've been working with a whole team of really incredible people to help our movement understand fascism. I'm wondering if you can give our listeners, some of whom may have never heard this term before, what is fascism?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, different people come at it differently. So let's just talk about some of the characteristics. And of course, everywhere that authoritarianism or fascism develops, it develops in its own social and political and historical context. So it's going to look different in different places. And so when people generally think of fascism, they think of Hitler and Germany and Mussolini and the lead up to the Second World War. But I think the things that we need to think about here in the US today about fascism, some of the elements of it. One of the elements is a rejection of democracy or a destruction of democratic norms. So breaking down, for example, access to voting, undermining the voting system, going after poll workers as the Republicans did in the last election. So undermining democratic norms and doing that systematically. The ways in which the Republicans have installed people on the Supreme Court. Denying Obama, for example, the ability to do that and then taking that on themselves. So there's a piece of it that is the undermining of democratic institutions, democratic norms. There's also a side of fascist tendencies that has to do with ultranationalism. In our country, that we have ethno-nationalism, which is also known as white supremacy in our case. And so in the particular context of the US, because we have this long history and long tradition of anti-Black racism, because we also have a long history of anti-immigrant sentiment, all of those sentiments, which are in the body politic all the time, in the society all the time, the people who have fascist tendencies exacerbate that, lift that up, and start to unite people on the basis of their ethnic identity, in this case, white ethnic identity. So sometimes, I don't know if you want to put this on the podcast, but, sometimes when amongst Black folk, it's like, have white folk lost their natural minds right along through here? Because seemingly so.
Yeah.
right? So there's a sector, not all white folk, obviously, but there's a sector of the white population that is highly motivated now by the notion of the purity of the white race and is highly motivated by the prospect, which is, not currently the case yet, but highly motivated by the prospect of a majority of color nation, right? It's of a nation that is composed in its majority of Black and brown and indigenous folk. And so there's this impulse towards preserving white majority rule, even if and when white folk are in the minority. And so that piece, and then you see that piece of the fascist current unfold in violence. So this is the other ways, this is the other characteristic of fascism, which is a resort to violence. So think about the murder of our folk in Buffalo. Think about the murder of our folk in Charleston, in the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston. Think about the murder of Jewish folk in the Tree of Life synagogue. This is the result of the media environment, including an online media environment, which encourages white supremacy and encourages particularly young white men in a situation where apparently anybody can get an assault rifle on the basis of that ideology to go out and literally murder people that they see as their inferiors, people that they understand to be, not worthy of life, people who they see as takers rather than builders of the nation, et cetera. So this element in our country of the white supremacist element of fascist ideology is profoundly deep and interwoven, right? So there's that piece. There's a piece that's also about male supremacy. So Trump becomes president. It's still unbelievable, but it is our reality. He becomes president, not only coming down that damn escalator, talking about Mexican rapists, but he also becomes president talking about grabbing women by the pussy. Can I say pussy here?
Yes, you can say anything you want.
Grabbing women by the private parts. So what is that telling you beyond the fact that Trump is a dog, right? What else is that telling you? It's telling you that there's a huge number of people who are prepared to vote for the man, despite the fact that he's clearly a wretched human being. But it's also telling you that dealing with women in any damn way you please is A-okay. So there's an element in this strand of deep misogyny, very deep misogyny, of male supremacy, and of negating the humanity of anybody who doesn't fit into a completely binary and male supremacist mode of thinking about how people should be, which then takes us to this insane anti-trans current that's deep in the Republican Party that goes after children and trans adults as an integral part of their ideology, which brings me to Christian nationalism. But I've been talking too long, so interrupt me with a question.
You have not been talking too long. I mean, I think it's important for us to lay these things out because I think a lot of times we look at these occurrences as isolated incidents. Okay, well, they're going after poll workers, in Georgia, but, that's not happening other places, right? Okay, well, they've instituted voter ID laws in this place, but that's not happening in anywhere else. Okay, well, we keep thinking about these instances as exceptions to the rule, as opposed to indicators, right, of the health of a democracy. And, one of the things that I was thinking about the other day is that when we see what's happening in Palestine with, Israel cutting off all media and communications, right? Doing like a complete blackout, right? I'm like, oh, that's really serious. But it's easy to think, oh, that happens in other places, in places that are quote unquote not democracies. But yet, here in the United States, right, there is a whole range of things, right, that journalists in this country are being told that they can and can't talk about, right? And that's not how it's supposed to function in a democracy. That's not just because of this moment. It is about the change in the guard and the change in the tide. And this is how you see, right? It's almost like, when you put your clothes in the washing machine, right? There's a set of cycles that it goes through to go from dirty to clean. And right? That sound in your washing machine when you're going from the spin cycle to the rinse cycle. And that's kind of where we're at. And so I'm glad that you laid it out so plainly, because when you do it that way, you start to see it as a system and not just a set of isolated incidents. I want to ask though, Linda, given all of the things that you just laid out about fascism, right? Limiting or trying to eliminate people's right and access to participate. You talked about ethno-nationalism, in our case, white supremacy. You talked about male supremacy. You talked about a range of things, right, that indicate that fascist tendencies are rising, or even that fascism itself is rising. I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more about, why does this matter? So for the person that says, and there are a lot of people who say this, right? Well, that's stuff that's going on with the government. That's stuff that's going on with the elites, but that doesn't have anything to do with me. Okay. I'm over here living my life, trying to put food on my table, trying to hang out with my peoples. That ain't got nothing to do with me. I don't really care about fascism. What do you say in response to that?
That has so much to do with everybody. And this is partly because we live in a really large and complex country. So it's really hard for any single person coming from their own perspective to take in what's going on in different demographic groups, in different geographic areas. It's really hard to kind of get a handle on what's the kind of motion as a whole. Where are we in the cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we on the spin cycle, or where are we at?
Right.
But I think the reason that all of us every single person needs to be concerned about this is because there's fascism as kind of ideology, as an ideological frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Then there, kind of individual fascists who are elected and position themselves in various parts of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's fascism in state power. Once fascism is in state power, we're in a whole other ballpark, a whole other part of the cycle, right?
Yeah.
We're trying right now not to get to that, right? So we've got all these undercurrents, all these currents, and the fascist movement itself is very complex. We haven't even talked about who's funding this mess, right? We haven't talked about the ways in which sectors of capital, sectors of the ruling class, what their vested interest in this is, and how they promote the political actors and the cultural actors who move fascist ideology and politics forward. So we are trying to not get to the stage where fascism holds state power. We're already in a situation in which the Republican Party which has essentially been captured by fascists. Take a look at what just happened in the speaker's race.
Oh, yeah.
Take a look at the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah.
Take a look at the ways in which we're being rolled back. So we are, or should be, everybody in the country should be actively trying to figure out how do we not get to the stage in which fascists have taken state power. And believe me, they are planning for that day. And on that day, if and when they take state power, we're in real trouble.
Yeah.
Because believe me, they have a plan for you.
And I don't want nothing to do with they plan. So y'all heard it here first. I want to just kind of turn our attention to what the fuck do we need to be doing right now? So you said earlier you wish people would change their minds about the idea that anything else is necessary right now except turning back the tide of fascism. Like, AKA, if you think that what time it is right now is time for socialism or time for an end to capitalism, and you think that might be around the corner, that it might be time to change your mind because it's actually further away than it was before. So let's talk about how we do that, right? If we were to pivot, okay, and honestly, I mean, we're keying here, but let's be clear. We do need a vision that we're moving towards, right? So this is not to say, right? Don't envision an end to capitalism. Don't envision, alternate ways of organizing our society and our economy. We have to do that in order to be guided in our steps right now. And, right, we can't live there and not deal with what is right now. You taught me that, Linda. So, given that, what do we need to be turning our attention to? What are the things that we need to be doing right now to roll back that tide?
Yeah. And I want to underscore what you just said, Alicia. I don't want us to lose a vision of deeply just society. And, I've already said it is a sector of capital that is taking us down this road. And, there's deep analysis of fascism as a deep current of capitalist relations when sectors decide that they want completely free reign.
Yeah.
And you look at something that somebody like Rupert Murdoch has wrought in this society through the propaganda that comes through Fox News.
Yeah.
And all in the name of profit, I might add.
Yeah, that's right.
All in the name of profit. So I do want us to keep hold of the notion that a deep transformation of capitalist relations is possible.
Mm-hmm.
In the immediate, what I hope that we can do is figure out how to preserve and claw back the elements of democracy that give us the space to do the work of expanding our democracy.
Yeah.
So what is it going to take for us to do that? What is it going to take for us in the electoral arena, in which I'm afraid some compromises are going to have to be made?
Mm-hmm.
What is it going to take in terms of, I've said many times, to roll back this tide?
Yeah.
We need an alliance that runs from anti-Trump generals all the way over to street fighting anarchists.
Mm.
Everybody who's got a beef with the MAGA crowd needs to be in that alliance. They don't all have to like each other. They don't all have to even know that they're all in the same alliance. But they all have to be, all of us should be figuring out what is our role, wherever it is we are. What are our relationships with people who need clarity about what time it is?
Mm-hmm.
What is our relationship with people who maybe are attracted by Trump and the MAGA crowd in some way, but are open to conversation? What is our relationship with people who are maybe a little bit to our right, and we need a deeper conversation about protecting democracy. So each of us, everybody listening to this, knows somebody who's wondering about what the hell is going on in this country right now.
Right. That part.
So have a conversation, have the conversation, get informed. There's all kinds of stuff, by the way, short stuff on YouTube, for example, about fascism. I just watched a little quick thing. It's about 5 minutes long. I think it was Robert Reich, who used to be our labor secretary. Very good. There are all kinds of academics who are talking about this. If you want something that goes on for an hour, you can have that. If you want something that goes on for 5 minutes, you can do that.
I love that.
Get informed. It's inviting to put up the blinders and act like this is not happening. Because the state of the world is worrisome, our species is not doing great right along through here.
Yeah.
We're not doing great in relationship to climate change.
Yeah.
We're not doing great in terms of how do we govern ourselves and how do we protect the well-being of our people. So one of the things you asked me is, okay, short of the transformation of capital, what can we aim for? We can aim for a multiracial, gender inclusive, or gender expansive democracy that supports the well-being of all people and that protects the climate. All of us can aim for that.
And I love that. And that is so different, Linda. It's a step toward, right? But it is different than socialism tomorrow. So I wonder if we can just kind of like vibe here for a second, because the approach that you're recommending, it maybe diverges, right, from some of the things that we might be seeing. So I think there might be, a sense, right, that, okay, well, things are just going to collapse. And so then we'll be ready to come in with something new as things are collapsing. I'm like, no, things are...
No, we're not
collapsing.
Ready.
Correct. So
we don't want collapse.
Yeah, no, we do not want collapse. We do not want collapse. You are correct. You are 100% correct. We actually don't want that. So you're saying that actually, instead of us building and focusing on, right, building united fronts, which is like the people that we are the most aligned with, right? You're actually suggesting something different, which I understand is more of a popular front, which is there's going to be like a thing that we align on, but it's going to be across a lot of different tendencies because we actually need to seep in to almost every sector of society to turn this thing around. So from Trump generals, right, to street fighting anarchists, that's the coalition that we're trying to build. Those things seem different to me. Tell me, if I didn't capture the differences, tell me the differences between forming more groupings of people that we agree with and we're getting sharper about what we agree on with building this broad alliance that is anti-fascist. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, unfortunately, Alicia, I think we actually have to do both things. So I don't think those things are in contradiction to each other. So I do feel like the progressive to left side of the spectrum really has to work on getting itself together, has to orient itself toward both the present moment and long-term strategy, has to figure out what are the values, not just the politic, but what are the values that unite the left, has to think through what are the politics that can unite the broadest swath of the left possible, has to come to some common understanding of our degree of leverage, the degrees of leverage and power that we do and don't have. So I actually think that that's a really important piece of work. But that piece of work at the moment is in service of playing a role in building this broader alliance. So I think about it that way.
That is actually a very helpful and important distinction, that to coalesce the left is in service of, right? Being able to be successful in building an anti-fascist coalition that is as broad as possible to stem the tide of fascism in this country.
There we go. Yes, indeed.
Sign me up. I'm in. I'm in. Linda, you know, I don't want to go, and I never want to go. And I feel so blessed because I get to talk to you all the time. And people are just going to get this 45-minute episode. And I feel bad for them because you're not going to get any more. But before we go, I want to ask you, because we do always have to be driven by purpose, if not hope. And I think hope, but it doesn't have to be in contradiction with each other. Sometimes we just don't feel hopeful, but we know what we're here to do. Okay, so I'm giving you the range of options here. Where are you finding purpose these days? And if you're feeling hopeful, where do you feel hope?
You know, I do oddly feel hopeful every now and then.
That's what's up.
I do. I mean, I stay sane by doing things other than politic, right? Hanging out with my 5-year-old grandson. But
yes, precious.
I was lucky enough to be invited, for example, to the Working Families Party convention that took place in early October in Philadelphia.
Yes.
That gave me a lot of hope.
Yes.
Wow. There was a room full of people who were really trying to figure out, how do you create a third force in American politics so that if you're functioning in the electoral arena, you don't become subservient to the Democratic Party? Long conversation that we won't go into about the strengths and weaknesses of the Democratic Party, but how to avoid that subservience by building a strong relationship with electeds, by building strong ties in communities, by building strong ties with labor. So going to that convention gave me a lot of hope. That's a long-term proposition. Building the Working Families Party and organizations like that as a force in American politics is a long-term proposition. I'm talking decades. I'm not going to be here to see how that all turns out. But being in the presence of people who have committed themselves to that path gives me a lot of hope. Knowing about the work that people did in 2020 and 2022 in the electoral arena gives me an enormous amount of hope. Looking at the ways in which the labor movement has revived itself, in spite of the incredible ways in which it has been undermined for decades, watching that, a lot of hope. So there's plenty of reasons to look at what's going on out there. Plenty of things to give us hope. And also plenty of things to make us a little tiny bit nervous.
Yeah, absolutely. Linda, you continue to be just the absolute best. And now I'm feeling more hopeful than I was when I got on the phone with you. So look at that. Look at that.
Good.
Look
Very
at that.
good.
I mean, I feel like we're winning here right now.
No, we're not winning.
Don't get
it twisted.
As Larry Lattimore used to say, you got to claim your victories. And so I'm going to claim that one. I'm going to claim that one. All right, y'all. Well, before we jump into this week's roundup, my loves, I just want to take a few minutes and say, I'm sorry I've been MIA. I'm sorry. Life has been lifing, and there is big, big, big changes afoot that I cannot share with you yet, but I will very soon. But one big change that I do want to share with y'all is that we're going to be wrapping up this podcast in a few weeks. Maybe not completely for good, but for now. Look, y'all, it has been the joy, and I mean the joy of my life to have been rocking with y'all for the last almost 4 years now. And I'm so grateful for your support over all these years. I mean, we have done some things together, y'all. we've laughed, we've cried, we've been all the way live, and we did the virtual thing like more times than I can count. And if I had all the time and all the money to keep this podcast going, I promise you I would. I promise. But unfortunately, even though we have made the time together, you and me, this pod is not the business that pays me. And with all the things going on, I got to prioritize my projects. So that's the bad news and the sad news. But there is good news, which is that we got a few more episodes left in us. We got some dope interviews left that we just have to put out. Like, I can't not put these out, like this one. So we're not going to leave you hanging. And I don't know yet what we're going to do for the final episode, but I promise you there will be a toast. So please get ready. All right, back to your regularly scheduled programming. And just like that, it's time for our weekly roundup of all the things Lady just ain't gonna do this week. Number 1, 100 days of bloodshed in Gaza. So late last week, we hit a milestone of 100 days of war in and on Gaza. 100 days, 23,000 people killed, many of them women and children. And much of this is funded by our government. We haven't heard much about any progress being made towards getting hostages released in several weeks now. Not since the temporary ceasefire that was brokered back in late November. It's now January in a whole new year. My heart breaks for Gaza, and my heart breaks for us. Now, how we resolve this is going to be a defining moment for our generation. I'm not here to pontificate about who is doing what and who is saying what, because you know what? Here's the reality. The degree to which this continues depends not just on who says what and who demands what. War, unfortunately, is rarely ever about the grievance that it claims. War is fundamentally always about power. Not punishment, but power. War is a complicated set of calculations about state power, regional power, and global power. It is rarely about morality and doing what's right, because if it was, we wouldn't be killing people to prove a point about who has the moral high ground. So many people dead. When will it all end? And what is it going to take for us to get there? Other things Lady ain't gonna do this week is act like somebody ain't gonna be elected president in 2024. So speaking of the war on Gaza, y'all, can we just have an honest conversation about 2024? On top of all the things we're facing right now, including a fascist bloc that is gaining power, there's more talk now about people sitting out the election because they just cannot fathom how they could vote for a president who has our country paying for one of the bloodiest wars in a decade. I get it. I do. I mean, I am sick over this shit. And for those of you who have lost family and friends and loved ones, I really just cannot even fathom. I can't imagine. I'm somebody who believes that we should leverage our votes in exchange for the things that we want. And to leverage your vote, I think you actually have to participate. Not voting is not a powerful statement because relative to our population, relatively few people vote anyway, even without war. So sitting it out doesn't actually have the intended consequences that we want, which is to hold a candidate, or a president for that matter, accountable. It merely, unfortunately, takes you out of the conversation. One of the shittiest pills to swallow in politics, I think, is that somebody is going to be the president. There's not a scenario here where a few thousand people don't cast a vote, and so it jams up the election. I'm trying to see a scenario where like a write-in campaign has a massive impact on this election, but I don't see it. I'm trying to see a scenario where a few thousand people don't vote, and it makes the president say, damn, I really should have done more to impact a ceasefire. But I don't see it. I'm even trying to see a scenario where perhaps a few thousand people not voting because of what's happening in Gaza makes a Republican candidate change their position on Gaza, which, to be clear, is like the one thing that Biden and Trump have in common, their position on Gaza. They want to keep doing what they're doing. So I don't have a crystal ball, and I do not have all the answers, but I do have this superpower that allows me to like see around corners. And when I look around that corner, I see a matchup between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And whoever wins that contest, sets policy and practice for the next 4 years, if they believe in the system that we've set up. I mean, there is a scenario where the person who gets elected feels like they should be the president forever and then rigs the rules to make it so. But let's not go too far down that stream, although we need to at some point. But for now, suffice it to say that somebody is going to be the president. And while I like the idea of figuring out how to leverage our votes in a way that extracts some concessions around a whole range of things, from like a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza to some major economic and social programs, I'm sending us a plea, and I'm sending it to myself, to use our power wisely. One thing I believe in, it's us. And I believe that we can find a way to leverage our power in ways that extends and expands humanity at all levels, even in the government. And one thing I know, as somebody who's been designing strategy for a while now, is that we got some more work to do on this one. Part of the key to effective and powerful strategy is working with what you got and starting from there, as opposed to starting from the way that you want the world to be. Goals and strategy, not the same thing. Vision and strategy, not the same thing. Goals and vision are what we are trying to achieve, and it's the way that we want the world to be. Strategy is designing the path of how we get there, working with what we got. So let's begin here. Somebody is going to be the president, the person who leads on foreign policy amidst a whole host of other responsibilities. And that person is either going to be Donald Trump or Joseph Robinette Biden. So the strategy to ceasefire, I think, has to include one of them as president, and the things we do with one of them as president to get to where we want to go. There's not going to be additional candidates for president because filing deadlines and whatnot, that makes that like a real thing. And it's not feasible that the president is going to be Cornel West or Jill Stein because political parties and that kind of thing. Not feasible. So what shall we do here, folks? I think it begins with voting for who we can work with on the terrain that we're on. Where it ends up is up to us. All right, here's what we want more of this week, though. Number 1, Republican primaries clearing the field of nonsense like Vivek in them. Okay, so speaking of the terrain we want to fight on, the Republican primaries are well underway, y'all. And lo and behold, Iowa primaries done knocked out some of the nonsense, with Vivek Ramaswamy finally closing down his unlikely to win presidential bid. Yes, we have been spared the man who believed that the January 6th insurrection was an inside job orchestrated by federal law enforcement, a man who believed that Democrats are importing immigrants of color to replace white people, and a man who believed that there was a conspiracy to replace Donald Trump with Nikki Haley, amongst other things. Anyways, y'all, this man spent $17 million of his own money to lose. Okay, listen, you gotta claim victories whenever and wherever you can, and the fact that Ramaswamy is no longer in the race is a small but mighty victory. Yep, I said it. Other things Lady loves this week is Black women winning at all these award shows, and it is about time. So, Black women were winning big at the award shows this week, leaving Anthony Anderson to rename the Emmys the Chocolate Emmys because Black women were winning all the things. Okay, Ayo Edebiri and Quinta Brunson became the only Black women to ever win Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy and Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy in the same year. Can you believe that, y'all? It's 2024. Niecy Nash Betts won Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Limited or Anthology Series for the movie Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, and Quinta Brunson won Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series for Abbott Elementary. Ayo won for The Bear, which also, side note, excellent series. Shout out to the homie Renee Gube for being a co-executive producer on the thing. Like, we love to see it. Anyways, finally, Emmy's so Black, and I'm here for it, honey. Linda, it's been amazing to have you on the show today. Thank you for joining us. It couldn't
Thank
get
you,
better than
Alicia.
this.
Thank you, Alicia. And thank you for the work that you do.
Yay! We love you. So that's it for Lady Don't Take No. But I will be back here with a new conversation and more news you can use. We appreciate you joining us. And please, let's keep the conversation going. Tell us what's on your mind. Tell us what you like. And tell us what you ain't gonna take no more of. We post ways to do something about things you hear on this show all over our socials. So if we got you amped up today, check out the socials to find out how you can take action. On Twitter, we're at Lady Take. On Insta, we're at Lady Don't Take No Pod. And we're also on Facebook or Meta or whatever. How did that branding thing go anyway? At Lady Don't Take No Podcast by Alicia Garza. And of course, we'd love it when you subscribe and you write a review. So please let the people know what you heard here today. Our producer is Phil Circus. Our incredible theme is by Latyrix. And this pod is supported by the Black Futures Lab. And me? I'm your host, Alicia Garza. Remember, the way to shift power is to keep your foot on their neck, not take your foot off the gas, which is why we're voting and pushing for a ceasefire at the same damn time. Because somebody is going to be the president, and it's either going to be Donald Trump or Joseph Robinette Biden. Yep. Gaza is breaking our hearts, and 100 days of killing children is 100 days too long. Farewell to the millionaire who spent $17 million of his own money to lose. And shout out to Black women winning anywhere and everywhere. That's right. I said it because Lady Don't Take No.
Lady don't take no shit. Insist on respect the sister. Walk around acting womanish. She won't speak unless it's something worth saying. Don't play. The girl take herself so serious. People stare curious. She got a natural way. Her hips sway furious. Yeah, the
Love y'all.
luxurious.